Did you know Apple's quest for stability and growth helped turn China into the most modern advanced manufacturing center in the world? In the late 1990s, Apple was struggling to compete. The solution? Outsourcing production to Taiwan and China. Apple partnered with Foxconn, building massive factories in Shenzhen, a city with a ready-made supply chain, skilled workers, and government support that could build new infrastructure almost overnight. This move wasn't just about cheap labor. It was about tapping into China's growing pool of skilled workers and unmatched manufacturing infrastructure. Outsourcing to China brought huge advantages. Apple slashed costs, making premium products affordable worldwide. China's skilled labor and efficient supply chain let Apple ramp up production fast. One factory alone could employ over 300,000 workers and make 500,000 iPhones a day. The scale and speed were unmatched. When Steve Jobs demanded a last-minute switch to glass screens, Chinese factories delivered in days, not months. Apple demanded higher quality, faster production, and cutting-edge techniques. Local suppliers had to level up, learning to make things like ultra-precise glass screens and advanced circuit boards. This tacit knowledge spread fast, fueling China's rise from low-cost assembler to high-tech innovator. The numbers are staggering. Apple invested over $275 billion in China, trained millions of workers, and created millions of jobs. By 2023, 90% of iPhones were made in China, and Apple's demand pushed Chinese companies to become world leaders in electronics manufacturing. But there are big downsides. By 2023, over 90% of iPhones were made in China, making Apple vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, political tensions, and COVID lockdowns that cost the company $1 billion a week in lost sales. Relying on one country means less control over labor practices and quality, risking Apple's reputation if issues arise. Moving production elsewhere isn't easy. China's manufacturing ecosystem took decades to build, and shifting even a portion to India or Vietnam is slow and costly. Apple taught China how to make cheap, quality products. This means that Chinese brands like Huawei started competing on the global market, including in the premium tiers, which were once the preserve of the top Western brands. American companies couldn't compete, and over time, more and more U.S. production moved to China. It wasn't just Apple that was now entirely dependent on China, but almost all other American companies too. There is also extensive, credible evidence of inhumane labor conditions in China's electronics manufacturing sector, particularly in major hubs like Shenzhen. These include excessive overtime, poor living conditions, workplace bullying, discrimination, illegal use of student labor, wage theft, and serious mental health consequences, including suicides. These findings are consistent across multiple independent investigations, worker testimonies, and NGO reports from 2011 through 2023. Apple invested so much money and training into Taiwanese and Chinese manufacturing plants that ultimately its products can be made nowhere else. While Apple makes much of its made-in-India iPhones, the reality is that only final assembly is carried out in India. Everything assembled originates elsewhere, mainly Taiwan or China. So, Apple's search for efficiency didn't just change its fortunes. It helped China become a tech giant, reshaping the global economy. Today, that same strategy poses new risks as Apple tries to diversify beyond China. Early stages of manufacturing operations exist in India, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines, but it's clear that the risks of overdependence on China have never been greater.